Well, good afternoon. Glad to be right before the lunch hour. Worked out well. Just a quick introduction. So today we're going to talk about mobility and IoT, in particular enterprise mobility, and how to build out a strategy about taking care of those applications as well as the strategy you want to build to empower your employees and do more with your mobile devices. So by way of background, my name is Greg Ostrowski. I am a employee at Samsung. I head up a couple things within the group. I run our alliances program, so my organization is the team that built the partnership with Samsung and Red Hat, as well as I have a team of application development lab staff, as well as engineers that work with our enterprise customers to fulfill needs and build solutions. Yesterday, I don't know if anybody had attended the other Samsung session, we did a session on DevOps. Well, as we built out our strategy, we had to be able to be very responsive, be very fast, and build a strategy that would enable us to quickly build applications and quickly serve the needs of our customers. As you get into this shift of mobility, you know, the consumerization of mobile in the IT space has brought this idea of everything has to be done fast, applications are out there, I just need to get something going for me. So I was hired on at Samsung back in 2014 to help build out the enterprise services business. So Samsung is known for being a traditional hardware company. We moved into the services business as well to help empower our customers with very interesting things of leveraging smartphone technology, tablets, wearables, and other products within their enterprise. So the team I have is dispersed around the US. We also have support organizations and things like that are out there to help drive strategies with our customers. So first thing we have to talk about is what do you think about with what is mobility? So for the longest time, mobility was just a phone. You get your email on your phone. But you got to set a strategy behind that and not think of it as a bolt-on. So if you think historically, folks got a phone or something to connect into their network for email as more of an accessory of what they do. But think of mobility as more of a strategy of how you can go out and perform your job better, faster, and provide better service to your customers. So what I like to do before I give these presentations, I like to talk about the evolution of mobility. I'm fortunate to be in the space for about 16 years, working with large enterprise customers roll out enterprise mobile solutions for quite some time. And it's kind of interesting when you kind of walk down memory lane and you think before mobility came into the existence, you know, you had pre-device, you had standardization, you had strategies, you had life cycles that you managed all behind your firewall. You had a great, set of process that handled everything to a T, and you were able to roll out operational handbooks that explain how things were going to be for your environment. Then mobile came into the picture right around 1999, 2000, and it became a privilege. So folks were able to get their email on their hip, and they were able to get access to something that others couldn't have and use it as a privilege. You know, I worked in New York City for the early part of my career in mobility, and it was always someone's on a golf course. What is that thing you got? Oh, I want that. I want to get that on my device now. But it was always the higher ranks of the companies. Then it eventually triaged down to operational workers or management level tiers, and folks started getting it just for email. And then in 2007 or so, the smartphone revolution kicked off, and then this whole idea of applications came out. So you had all these consumer applications that helped someone manage their life in a better way. So you can do your banking, you can do your airline travel. But you have this issue now where the mobile space in the enterprise has been ramping up with this MDM market, or EMM market, which is how you manage your devices. Folks here are familiar with EMM products? I'm not going to really talk about it too much, but effectively it's the way you manage your device in your infrastructure so that you can set things like passwords, policies, how to use it. But the limitations there was that it just got you access to your email, calendar, PIM data. And when you think about that conceptually, this market just started to mature right around 2015, and now. So in 2015, 2016, most enterprise strategies are, let me roll out my MDM, and let me get email, calendar, and PIM on my phone. And when you think about it, that was done in 1999, right? So your strategy's got to be to a point where, how do I get more out of my mobile devices, leveraging interesting technologies that you can do to provide connectivity and access to the real parts of the data that you want to get access to. And if you really want to get crazy, you got to start thinking IoT in there as well. So if you look at any of the statistics and they start showing how many connected things they're going to be, so you figure a population of 7 billion people in the world, they say somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 billion smartphones out there. You look at IoT, they're talking numbers of 20 billion connected devices in the IoT space. And if you start looking at use cases for IoT in the enterprise, leveraging beacons, leveraging sensors, leveraging big data repositories so you can access all that data and mash it up and make it usable on a smartphone or make it usable on a different presentation layer. So the next generation is something that, it's not as mature as the mobile space is, but you got to be thinking of how am I going to make my investment so when I go forward in the future, I'm able to service mobility and IoT. Because if you look at how everything blends together, the commonality between mobility and IoT is cloud services. So a lot of cloud services bridge the gap between your mobile device and your core infrastructure. Think of cloud being the integration piece between all of your connected devices, whether mobile devices or IoT, into your infrastructure. So the big question, what's the design blueprint for going for a mobile-first, future-proof strategy? So this concept is somewhat fairly publicized in the market. A lot of people think about what's mobile first. But think about when you roll out new applications and you have new job functions in your company, how do you take a mobile-first approach with that job? So if you think of a field service worker, you think of anyone who has to be away from their desk, what is the job they can do that can be mobilized to make their job easier, faster, more efficient, providing better service to their customers, and again, becoming a better employee? So think about that of mobile first. And then you also think about the earlier slide I had, pre-device. You have a lot of legacy data. You have a lot of legacy infrastructure. Red Hat's deployed Linux and running a lot of mission-critical systems in many, many places. If you think about how am I going to make that into a mobile-first strategy without breaking the bank of investment, which is really, really critical to think of. But on the same token, you want to make your investments so that they're future-proof, not just through mobility, but through IoT as well. So take a thought of this strategy. So simplification, connectivity. Connectivity is the one that I'm going to harp on the most today. Innovation and transformation. The state you should be in today, you should be in the simplify and connected state. Innovation and transformation are something that will get you to where you want to go as long as you build the right strategy. But at this point in time, having a simplified mobile deployment as well as a connected mobile deployment is really where you need to be thinking of where you should be. So when you think about simplification, mobility, like I mentioned, is mature now. In the EMM space, the enterprise mobility management space, the market is fairly mature. You have products out there that are, at one point in time, there was 200 companies that are in that space. And that shrunk down to less than 10 now that are the top leaders. Microsoft has a product called Intune. You have MobileIron. VMware acquired AirWatch. You have SODI. Obviously, you have BlackBerry. You have a lot of folks in that space, so it's narrowed down to a small group. It's very mature, but it's very limited on what it's going to get you as far as your strategy going forward, manages your devices, and gives you that kind of, how should I say this, peace of mind that your devices have the right policies on it. But it doesn't get you to a point where you're showing innovation to your end users. So from a connectivity standpoint, if you look at any of the good applications on there that are on a consumer-type app. So take United Airlines, for example. I fly United Airlines. I live out of New Jersey. Fly United Airlines all the time out of Newark. And the cool part is you log in, you get your boarding pass. It's all connected to a system of record hosted by United that has all my data, right? So if you think of that mindset, that application works for me because it's accessing something that's secure, stored somewhere. I don't know where it's stored, but me to the end user, I got my boarding pass. I'm able to get on my flight. I'm able to change my flights. I'm able to do things that make my life easier. If you think of your employees who are starting to use mobile devices to do more, you have billing systems, you have inventory systems, you have sales CRM systems. Some could be hosted in the cloud, some could be hosted on-premise, some could be 15, 20 years old, running on a mainframe. But the fact of the matter is, to the end user, they don't care. They just want access to that data. So how do you build a system and build a strategy to get you to a point where you give them the productivity tools that are accessing that data that's on legacy systems that you have internal? Mission critical systems, as I might say too. And at the end of the day, you have to have a consumer-like experience. And what do I mean by that? It's a mobile application. Everyone's used to having Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, the airline applications, the banking applications, all have a consumer look and feel to them, and all work. So your thoughts have to be the same. And I always give this reference to, how many folks deploy a expense system on-premise? None? So let me give you a perfect example here. We deploy our own expense system on-premise. When you go in and you do your expenses, we just had a conversation right before we came in here about how challenging it is to do expenses because it takes so long to go through the process. Well, if you think of it from this mindset, if you click a button and you're at your desk on your PC, and it takes 15 seconds for your browser page to open up, how is that going to correlate when you put it on a mobile device? So there's any mobile application that gets downloaded and it takes a long time to show up your images and things like that, it gets deleted. It doesn't get used. And that's whether it's built by the corporation for the corporation or even a consumer type application. So think of your connectivity piece as not just replicating the same experience you have on your desktop to a mobile device, but think about how you transform that to using a connected platform. So when you think about innovating, and it's funny how we get into conversations that talk about innovation with mobile devices, because we had, I have an innovation lab hosted by that young gentleman over there. Raise your hand, Rich. And the cool part is we work with customers to help them use the mobile device technology to innovate into their enterprise. So for example, we had a customer that wanted to build a kiosk with a tablet, and when you walk up to the tablet, they wanted it to fire up and start playing an advertisement. The person can swipe it away and start plugging in their information. Well, what they did is they bought a rubber pad that plugged in through USB. When you step on the pad, it lights it up. Well, the Innovation Lab came up with the idea of, well, why don't you use facial recognition in the camera to recognize that a person's standing there and play the ad. So we showed that to him, and it was like, oh, this is wonderful, because now we're not consuming the USB port for power. We can now use that to power the device and use the camera to do that. But it's very innovative, and we have things using the camera for scanning barcodes, all sorts of stuff that helps your employees use the mobile device technologies as you go. As you can see here, I got a stat, 24% of the organizations use about 24% of the device's capabilities. That's the phone, that's the email, that's the touch screen for typing, minimal use. There's a lot of APIs that are available to use on the device. I'll talk about how you can easily do that. Now from transformation, this is when you really move to that mobile-first platform. This is when you take a person's job and you transform that person's job to be more effective based on using mobile technology to their benefit. And this is where you can combine a phone, a wearable, somebody may be in a high danger position, and having a wearable that can give them notifications from their device is very critical. To alerts, you can have first responders getting notifications to their device while they're in the middle of a crisis situation. So anywhere you can transform that person's job to become more effective, more productive, make their life easier, make their life safer, is where you start to transform your business leveraging the technology. So let me give you a strategy execution here of how to go about building out your plan. So when you think of building out your mobile solutions or your mobile strategy, think of this modular concept. Now, Rich always tells me, nobody writes code anymore. Everybody just copies it off of GitHub or some other repository. But the problem is that there's a lot of them out there. Some may not work, some may work really well. But if you think about what you want to do on your devices, think of this modular approach. So a lot of applications are going to have similar functionality that are going to be used there on the device. So think about your UX as being a commonality. So everything we build has a standardization where we put our menu systems and all the way the apps are, so that when we roll out new apps, everyone knows how to navigate them. You want to use the camera for scanning, for barcode scanning. Build a module that helps you with the barcode scanning. Or build a module that helps you with fingerprint recognition or signature capture, or all the different things so that you can plug it into different applications as you go by. So the idea is you're not re-engineering every time a new project comes up. Because guess what? The business does not have the patience to wait for a 9-month or 12-month development cycle like they had back in the pre-device period when everything was fairly standardized and simple and process-driven for your IT departments. So if you look at it from this point of view, think modular, think DevOps, think that you can start building things in reusable code for making your applications faster and servicing the needs of your business at a very consumer-type mindset. When you think of beyond applications, you got to build those modules as well that integrate into your system of record, your SAP systems, your Oracle systems, your mainframe data, to get access to that live data that's going to make the business decisions and critical path for your business. And then you also think of, how am I going to support my end users for this? How am I going to train? How am I going to bring them on board? You have the cool thing about mobility is that you have like a crowdfunding type support that just naturally happens. You have a lot of folks, even when somebody says, hey, what device do you have? How do you do this? It happens very quickly within the enterprise app space as well. So you can piggyback off of what happens organically, as well as provide the support for that tier 3, tier 4 level support when things really start to go haywire. And you look at how we have these modules. We've built modules for, obviously, for barcode scanning. That's a very popular request for the field service workers. Time capture. So think about this when you have any professional employee, somebody who is a consultant or a lawyer that needs to track all their time. Well, you can build a timer that ties into the phone or your email that logs how long you've been on a phone call tied into a CRM system so that I can be on the phone call with someone for an hour. Our lawyers like to call you for 10 minutes and bill you for an hour, but they can that's one of my better jokes. So be on the phone for an hour and bill you, but being that it's linked to the CRM system, all they have to do is hang up the phone call and it gets logged. It's logged right to their billing. And also think of forms. So we get asked a lot for someone to deploy a tablet where I can use a tablet to go through a checklist, fill out information, capture pictures, put pictures into the form, signature capture, take pictures of an ID so I can get a passport or I can get a photo ID of a person and log it into my system. And again, with connectivity tied into that, you have the ability to put it into a real enterprise system. And then think of workers. You have time shift workers or someone who might be using a device for a period of time. You know, your solutions are able to do that as well, so you can track time based on a person having a device from 8 hours a day or whatever their shift is. Now, this is the part I love, because this is where our partnership with Red Hat and their mobile application platform really, really makes a lot of sense. I think when we announced last year, we we had a lot of folks come up and say, well, I don't understand why Samsung would partner with Red Hat. Well, when I explain it to them and say, well, we have a hardware business, we have an enterprise services business where we want to work with customers to fill out their need or to solve their needs for mobility. How do you connect from your mobile device to your enterprise system? And how do you do it in a smart way where you can leverage something that's built for mobility, not something that was built for a PC-based LAN environment? And when you start thinking mobility, you have issues like battery life, proper consumption of the network, things like that have to come into mind. And leveraging the Red Hat mobile application platform does all that for you. So from a connected standpoint, think of this as a service that you can leverage that integrates into your existing legacy systems so that you're not putting a major investment into your legacy environment to forklift that to a cloud or upgrade that. You can easily integrate that to the Red Hat piece, and you could build connectors. So if I want to build a connector that's based on SOAP technology into my billing system, I can do that. And the cool part is that you can build microservices around it so that if you make one request from your device, the Red Hat Map platform can do many connections for that data, could do multiple connections for that data, could be going to an SAP system and a Salesforce.com system to aggregate that together to make the right decisions for the end user. So the cool part is you have this very simple, easy to deploy service that does solves a lot of challenges for the enterprise. Connecting to the data is a huge challenge. Not to be taken lightly, but this really simplifies how you want to take that strategy going forward. And with their platform as well, takes care of lifecycle management of the application. So as you start rolling out mobile applications, how am I going to make sure that the end users are running the right version? How am I going to make sure they're running the newest version? And how can I also end of life an application? These are all things that you want to put into position that you can quickly do as you roll out your projects. When you think about beyond back end, so you have your integrated enterprise systems, but as a lot of folks migrated to cloud services as well, think of this as being your mobile platform so that you can build your mobile-first solutions off of. It doesn't matter where the data is at. This gives you access to it. It ultimately brings it down to your end user population. And you can mobilize these large systems that are something that you would not necessarily be able to easily read on a mobile device, but you can format it in a way and grab the information you want so that it's giving the people exactly what they need. So you think about it from this aspect. You've rolled out older systems on the back end. Your data's in a spot that's unformatted for mobile. You have access through that mobile application platform that gives you pretty much access to anything, whether it's Microsoft SharePoint, all the way through to an Amazon Web Service, Salesforce.com, SAP. Now, from a strategy and execution, this is where I like to talk about the innovation piece. This is where you really got to focus on the end users. So find out what the end users need. Many times in IT, we try to build products that we want to roll out to IT, and that was okay when you want to roll out an expense system. It's not okay when you want to roll out something that's trying to change the way they operate and try to change their lives. You want to show IT as being innovative to your end users. And by leveraging them for their feedback is the way that's going to make that happen easier. And partnering with the business can also help drive that. So we talked a little bit earlier about the consumerization of IT. There was a weird transformation where mobility brought in this new trend of bring your own device. And IT was put in a position where they were forced to support devices they weren't ready for. And that's what took the mobile device management space to a point where it was able to mature eventually, but early on it was really, really kind of tough. But that mindset still hasn't changed. The whole mobilization piece and consumerization of IT is where the innovation happens at the end user space, because now it's their life, their job, the way they want to operate, and that's how you got to think about addressing that. And always think about the agile piece. I talked, modules is a phenomenal way to start so that you can be very responsive. If your end user comes to you on Monday, it gives you the ideas of what they want. You got to think about getting them something by Tuesday as an example of what they were thinking about what they want, right? And if you have that module repository of applications there, you should be able to quickly put that together and then send them a link that downloads right from the Red Hat Map platform to load that application on their device. Say, check this out. This is what I got for you. Your business guy is going to be like, wow, my IT guys are killer. They can serve what I need to do. Versus, our IT department's not that good. Let me call up an agency and see if they can build something for me for probably 15 times the cost of what they pay for internal. So think about that from the approach of leveraging that strategy. And then from that transformation and processes, think about what they do today on a pen and paper type mindset. They want to be able to take that to a mobile type functionality. Makes their life much easier. And now we're in a position where mobility is so rampant throughout wherever you go that their ability to change is extremely likely. And the cool thing is the technology piece actually opens up business opportunities too. So when you think about if you can have your sales reps doing things right on the spot versus having to go back to headquarters or go back to whomever to be able to address the needs of a customer, that the customer of that sales rep is going to be like, wow, this guy's really got everything together and he's able to service what I need in a much more effective way. So by having the right strategy and platform together, really gets you to look as a leader in your industry to your customers. So here's our example of how we execute inside of Samsung. So we have Red Hat as our center focal point when we go into a customer engagement. So we actually leverage this for internal use as well as use with our customers. So if you look at it from the left-hand side, that is the left-hand side, right? So we have our Samsung modules. So if you go to our booth, you could take a look at some of our modules that we have built in live application types. So we have things like inventory management so that someone can use a phone with the camera to log barcodes, log pictures of the item, capture data, store that to a inventory management system. We have things where you can go in and reserve conference rooms and tie into Active Directory so that it links everything together. We have many different applications. We have a sales tracking application, so when your sales reps are sending in shipments to your customers, you can actually track where things are going in transit. The interesting part about the sales one is that it actually ties into 3 different systems to be able to present that to the end user. And you'll see the UI is very, very intuitive and very, very fast and snappy. With the enterprise integrated piece, again, this is where Red Hat really comes to play for us. This is what integrates into the back-end system. Very simple to do. It's based on Node.js. It's all JavaScript connectors that get developed for it, so it's not something that's reinventing the wheel with understanding types of technologies to use. It's very, very current technology and enables you to build that integrated, connected model very easily, cloud-hosted. So it's not something that's a bear to implement. You could start out small, you could start out big, you can go all in, or you can get a couple projects going and away you go. So the end of the day, this is where the engineering work puts you in a spot where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like I said earlier, you have a lot of these disparate systems that are running on behind your firewall or in a different data center. You don't have to re-engineer that to be able to make it to a mobile structure. You just have to use the right technology that is not just good for today, but it's good for the future as well, as you can tie IoT into that. So from big picture concepts, you also have to think here when you have the right platform in place, think of this mobile mesh network. So when you look at how you operate on your mobile devices today, think of all the different data repositories you're going to. Whether you're on Facebook, you're connecting into Facebook, whether you're connecting into Google for something, or connecting into Microsoft for something, or connecting into any of the banking applications or the The airline applications I referred to earlier, you think about it, what your device is doing. Your device is going all over the place for data. And when you start thinking about how am I going to correlate that to an enterprise strategy, well, think of it from this way. You have folks that need to make really critical decisions in your environment, and if they can access all the different data repositories on their device quickly and make the right decisions, then you're able to use that network to your benefit and provide it into a very quick way of decision making, responsiveness, and operational efforts that you might have your employees that they can do better for their job. With enterprise scale systems, you have to think of it from this way too. There's no real silver bullet out there yet. So you have, like I mentioned earlier, the MDM space evolved over several years. With the mobility space, you have the right platforms to put in place. You're going to see that there is, a very interesting approach of how many different folks are taking this path to mobilize their applications. It's very, very new in the market for a ramp-up period of time. But you also have to think about it from this aspect. If you look at how the consumer app space had taken off, the enterprise app space is going to be right behind that. And you're going to see this huge investment and huge amount of demand to get access to all the things that they need to have within your overall network of data repositories. And many of the folks that went down the path of an API play, now leveraging our partnership with Red Hat 2, all those connectors that we build for access into different systems are effectively building a REST API for mobile consumption. So think about making an API play for your environment so that as you tie that modular approach all together, you'll have modules on the device side, you'll have APIs on the back-end side that are built by your connectors from the Red Hat MAP platform. So from an IoT perspective, have any folks here started to play around on any type of IoT deployments? You'll see a few interesting things that are starting to pop up in airports, in sports stadiums and things like that, where they're deploying beacons and deploying the ability to start tracking people. Last year, anybody go to Red Hat Summit last year? You did? So in the keynote, they had an interesting demo with heat mapping. Beacons were deployed all throughout the location, and anyone who downloaded the app for the Red Hat app were tracked everywhere they went. So they were able to show a heat map where everybody was going throughout the day. And the cool part about that is all IoT. It's a very easy to deploy IoT solution, which is a small little beacon that costs a couple $. Plug them under seats, plug them under anywhere you want to go. And you could start thinking about how this can do more for your organization as well. So if you put a beacon to if I walk up to a desk here and I don't know how to use the conference call system, a beacon will pop up with the application there, give me instructions on how to use the conference call system. Or if I have a company-wide sales meeting or a company-wide event, and I have all sorts of stations where I want to see all my company products, you can deploy beacons at all of them and walk around with your phone so that you can see what pops up and demonstrates what's going on at each of those facilities. So it makes it even more interactive for the population, especially with the newer millennials coming into the business space. So from Samsung's got an approach to IoT as well. So we have a couple IoT platforms with our Samsung Arctic modules. So these are pieces of hardware that we've developed that gives you full access and APIs to. We have effectively a small, medium, large. You'll have small little things that can do what I was talking about there with heat mapping, or you can have ones that are much more smarter and controllable and powerful of what you can integrate. And if you think about what I was saying earlier, as far as your strategy goes going forward, it all kind of gets tied together with the cloud, right? And if we have a partnership with Red Hat to go through mobility, IoT is an easy way to extend that to it because it all centralizes to the cloud. The connectors to the enterprise are going to be there through the Red Hat Map platform. And we also have a Samsung Arctic Cloud as well, which is a cloud service mainly for some of our smart home technologies and things like that. Red Hat's a big player for us on the enterprise. On the consumer business, we have to leverage an open API system that allows some of our consumer players to get into that space. And with that being said, you got to think of it this way too, right? So technology changes so rapidly. If you look at the interesting things of how mobility's changed in the last several years, it's absolutely astonishing how everything has just skyrocketed. Capabilities have skyrocketed. So you have to think about it, how has your organization last changed with respect to all the technology that's been available out there? A lot of consumer-grade technology. So if you think about what was the last major shift that you've had, is it deploying something that's an upgrade to an existing system, or is it a way that you transformed your business to something a bit more strategic? So that being said, I'll open up to a couple questions. Was that good? Covered everything? All right, I'll be around for a little bit. Anyone wants to come up and have a chat? Happy to chat. Thank you very much.